This is the video lecture, page 352 through 365. This is the America Moves West, chapter 13. We pick up with the Mexican borderlands. Southwest United States, it's very, very different than the rest of the United States. They have diverse people. They have full-blooded Native Americans who retain their languages and customs. They're the largest group. Then you have the mestizos, who are Native American and Spanish ancestry. Then you throw the Criollos, who are American-born whites of Spanish ancestry, and then the smallest group are Spaniards. So if you put it in the pyramid shape, you have the Spaniards at top, followed by the Criollos, which are Spaniards who have children in America. Then you have the mestizos, who are a mixture of Native American blood and then Spanish ancestry. And then at the bottom, you have the Native Americans, full blooded, no mixed ancestry involved in the pyramid. There are three centers of settlement in the Mexican borderlands: Texas, New Mexico, and Alta, California. So Alta in Spanish is high or upper or tall. And so we have what's called Baja California, which is if you're looking at a map, the part that sticks off of California, that's part of Mexico. And so um, Alta California would be just present day California. Texas is super problematic for Mexico. They don't know how to handle it. Um, there's not a lot of people there. The economy is struggling, and communication is difficult because it's so far away from the capital in Mexico City. And so they want to try to encourage settlement in Texas. So they open up their borders to Americans, and they encourage American settlers to come into Texas by offering them large land grants and making them impresarios. Okay. The agreement required them to do three things. They had to accept Mexican citizenship, convert to Catholicism, and obey the Mexican government. Well, these are three easy things that you can say you're doing and that you believe in and things like that, but that you really don't have to do. We already said back here that settlements are sparse, communication's difficult, and there's not a whole. I mean, there's so Texas is so big. I mean, it takes a whole day to drive through Texas in a car, let alone trying to get across Texas. So sure, I'll put my Mexican flag up. I'll say that I'm a Mexican citizen. I'll convert to Catholicism, quote unquote. I'll obey the Mexican government. I won't have slaves. But these four things, even though the three are the big three here, I'm going to have anyways. You're telling me that I'm, 5, 6 day journey or more away from you, that I can't be, when you show up, haven't heard that you're coming, that I'll get my Mexican flag and fly it. I'll sit in mass and I'll obey the Mexican government. I'll hide my slaves. Whatever I have to do, I'll do to make sure that I get this land and follow the rules. American settlers poured into this region, again, bringing their slaves. It's cotton, cotton, cotton. And relations between the American and Mexican government decline. And because they're we're not really following the rules at heart. And so America leads a successful rebellion, and we create the Texas Republic in 1836. Tejano, you're going to need to know that vocabulary term. It's a person of Spanish or Mexican descent that is born in Texas. Now, that doesn't mean that they're an American. It's just Tejano. It's in the Spanish terms of things, they like to really categorize everybody. An impresario is an agent who receives a land grant in return for organized settlement. We talked about that. Tejano, Mexican or Spanish descent, born in Texas. And the Alamo, we really don't need to talk about the Alamo. If you guys don't know about the Alamo and all that stuff, that we've talked about it in class, we talked about it in 8th grade. I mean, it's a big deal. I'm not trying to make it not a big deal, but for our conversation at the moment, the Alamo is just a rallying cry of remember the Alamo, which gets Texas to become a republic. Okay, and so here this shows, and we're going to come back to this map here momentarily. But here's the Republic of Texas. It's much smaller than actual Texas is right now. Um, and we see the disputed area between Texas and Mexico, and we'll come back to why that's important here momentarily. Mexican administration of California has always been weak. It's too far north. The secular, so they set up mission systems there to try to convert all the Native Americans, and they end up being secularized. Almost every major city in California started out as either a Mexican mission or some sort of fort or something along those lines. Almost every major city, if you just start to think about it, all of them are San or Los or something along those lines that all have to do with Spanish words. Once the missionary system is secularized, they open up lands, and the rancho system has been established where somebody just controls the land almost like an impresario. Okay. American settlers to California include Yankees from New England, New York, coastal cities, Midwest farmers, and central valleys. This is the one place where those east to west immigration lines don't tend to hold water. Everybody from everywhere ends up in California. And there's a reason for that. There's so many opportunities in California at this time. There's tons of farming. The land itself with gold and everything else that California has to offer, it's no wonder, and it makes 100% sense that Mexico is able to publicize California and get it settled. Now the United States has got to make sure that that becomes ours. American merchants also open up the Santa Fe Trail, which we talked about before, which skirts along the eastern side of the Rocky Mountains, so you don't have to cross the Rocky Mountains. Very pretty place as well, a very good trading place, stopping point between Mexico and the United States. Californios are persons of Spanish descent living in California. So like Tejano is Spaniard or Mexican descent living born in Texas. Same with California. Okay, and then of course Utah is settled by the Mormons. All right, so we talked about the Mormons at length before about how they're the most religiously persecuted group in the 19th century. They start out in Pennsylvania, New York area, and then they move westward until they hit Nauvoo, Illinois. And this is after Joseph Smith has found his tablets. They found the church. They moved to Nauvoo, Illinois, and build a large temple there. Well, eventually the people of Nauvoo, Illinois grow tiresome of them, and they actually fight them. This is where Joseph Smith is killed. He dies as aka a martyr. And so then his second in command, Brigham Young, decides that he's going to follow through on what him and Joseph Smith had talked about and move westward to present-day Salt Lake City. They move to an area, Utah, that is very pretty, but it's full of rocks. And it is the largest in the United States body of water, the Great Salt Lake, that you can't drink from. I mean, who really wants to live there? Again, I'm not speaking bad about Utah, but at that point in time, it's a very difficult place to live. And that's kind of the idea that the Mormons have is we'll just go and hide. We'll go out there. Nobody really wants it. Mexico doesn't want it. The United States doesn't want it. We'll just kind of be there and worry about things later. We'll take care of us now and then worry about it later. And again, they found the largest Mormon religious college there, Brigham Young University, named after Brigham Young, the man who brought them from Nauvoo, Illinois to Salt Lake City, or just Utah, whichever one you prefer. All right, politics, expansion, and war. So the Democrats viewed the victory in the election of 1844, and now remember, the election of 1844 is Polk winning president. So when Polk wins, they see this as a mandate for expansion. And so they're going to use a combination of war, negotiations, to make the United States span from the East Coast to the West Coast. All right, we already talked about Manifest Destiny at length. It shows up in here. You need to remember Manifest Destiny. Don't forget Manifest Destiny and everything we talked about with why we are able to justify our expansion across the United States. It's extremely important. This is a major theme in this chapter. Do not forget Manifest Destiny. Okay, here she is again, another picture that we talked at length in class. Remember, light to dark. She's either Lady Liberty or an angel, and if she's Lady Liberty, she's carrying the Constitution. If she's an angel, it's the Bible, and we're bringing light to the darkness, and the natives are running, and we're bringing in the miners and the transportation and everything else. So please don't forget about Manifest Destiny. Now, Polk is an ardent expansionist, so that's why we are able to say that 1844, expansion, expansion, expansion. So he compromises with Britain, solving a treaty that resolves the issue over Oregon, which is kind of a bummer because everybody's saying, and he said this in his campaign speech, 54, 40 or fight, which means we want to go all the way up to British Columbia on the west coast of the United States, the west coast of Canada, and take all of that. But instead of going to war, he just settles with, let's extend that line, the 40th parallel, all the way across from, it was stopped at Montana, now all the way across, all the way to what is present day Washington. So we're going to get Washington and Oregon and the top of Idaho without a fight. Okay. And then the annexation of Texas promotes Mexico to sever diplomatic ties with the United States. And the way we get into the war is just awesome. It's a dispute over where Texas starts and stops and where Mexico starts and stops. Okay, so let me go back to this real quick so you guys can get this. All right, so we think the border of Texas is the Rio Grande, this river right here. Okay, the Mexicans think the border of Texas is the Nueces River. Okay, so Polk sends Zachary Taylor down to Texas and says, start a war without starting a war. Okay, so Zachary Taylor has this really good plan. He's going to send his troops over the Nueces, but in between, and in the land between the Nueces and the Rio Grande, right here. Okay, and now the big deal here is that we believe we're still in the United States. We're still in Texas, right? Where'd my mouse go? Right here. Mexico thinks that we are in Mexico, but they also realize that we think we're still in Texas. So they send a group of soldiers, Mexican soldiers from Mexico, and cross over the Rio Grande. So now in their minds, they're still in Mexico, and in our minds, they're in the United States. But we just let them chase us, and they follow us. Now we run over the Nueces River, okay? And guess who follows us? Mexico. Well, even in their own definition of the border between the United States and Mexico, which their definition is the Nueces, what have they now done? They have now invaded the United States. Okay? They think the border is the Nueces. Okay, but now when you invaded the United States, now we can go and kick your butt. And that's exactly what happens. Okay? They, quote unquote, invade the United States by chasing us back over the Nueces because they cross over the Nueces. And once they do that, Zachary Taylor is able to go to war, and after the border dispute, we basically annihilate Mexico. We don't really lose. Under the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, Mexico cedes its claim to the current Southwest United States. We give them money we kicked your butt. We're gonna give you some money. And you can see here that, this is just we actually lose one little battle at San Pascual, but for the most part, we just take all of it. Polk had a big decision. He could have taken all of Mexico. But when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, that's way too much land, way too many people, and they don't speak English. And that's going to be really difficult to try to just administer all that. And with administering all that, then you're administering land that you really don't want. Mexico's a lot of desert. Okay? And that's it. Hopefully, I did a good enough for your quiz. Good luck on your quiz over pages 352 through 365.